I'm going to read chapter 19 from the Book of Uncertain, a Hyperbiographical User's Manual, Volume 2. This is called Uncertain Times and Nomadic Conclusions, a mythic phantasmagoria in love's dark heart. It begins with two epigraphs. Terrific rage the eternal wheels of intellect, terrific rage the living creatures of the wheels in the wars of eternal life. William Blake, The Four Zoas. The unknown is not that of which we simply know nothing. Rather, it is what pushes against us as something disquieting in what is known. Mark C. Taylor, After God. My arms about your neck, we clung together perilously. William Carlos Williams. You just never know who's coming around the mountain, but when she comes, watch out. 6 white horses being a figure of speech for gobsmacked by a goddess, figure's tangible touch, leaving a speech zone of breathless attention where meeting her turns out to have been a sacred event all along. Out of the mouths of caves, so to speak, issue intimations of other worlds, or at least a ply or two more of this one, where love lurks in folds, muttering strange spells in unexpected moments, the unknown pushing hard against aged expectations and their built-in sense of end. But it turns out she never heard that word, or if she did, had a good laugh at those who draw lines in time when she knows only to fan the embers banked in any hungry heart awaits her breath. First perfumed breeze of spring sets lambs leaping, blood surging through veins long thought dormant in time's uncertain inhabits, with tenuous delight and terror of that old pain cries in youth's empty arms and raging heart, strangely returned out of time, blessing and curse. Touch of another leaves flesh burning, splitting, blackening with unknown intensities, reaching for a body beyond. No whiteness, but is no whiteness lost is so white as the memory of whiteness. William Carlos Williams. Looking for conclusion, even nomadic is a pastime of intricate conjecture, especially when the road that long provided means to get from one poem to the next just up and vanishes, leaves no trace of direction through words' tumult, excruciated heart's holy forest. But as I recall was headed down, William's descent that beckons toward despair, though he flips it into initiation, a neat trick. But do we have to hold on to despair? Lose hope, a word of unknown origin that evades faith's belief, charity's love in groundless desire? The elder three then arrived through the back door, Euphrosyne, Thalia, and Aglaia, of course, all shiny Aphrodite's henchwoman. Such splendor renders despair dimmer, though strangely seductive. A blank spot in a chaos of wildflowers threatens. Surprise entrances from forgotten powers still hang out in the dark. Awake and fuck you up with touch, glance, spark that's been known to blaze into full-fledged glimpse of how angels do it. Who needs the road then, when uncertain's sidewalk embrace among strange foliage leaves passing tourists gaping, stunned by shameless heat, up, down, all around the town mingles the road's anticipation with a touch of descent's despair. In the rare taste of another lingers indecent, burning on soul's tongue. Nomadic conclusion leaves uncertain to rule the roost, not a bad thing when certain notches up some new slaughter every other day. After centuries of practice, everyone knows who to kill when the word comes down, and the word comes down often. The same one in the beginning was, and hey, look, in that same old mysterious iniquitatis harbored here in certain perfections just happened to leave imperfect residue requiring immediate purification ritual when the word comes down, the same as this one, doing perplexed yeoman's duty in service to light, if such a thing can be said of everyday flawed shot that redemptive embrace of furthers daily round in the light of clarified eyes. But then uncertain times release more love than heart knows how to bear as progenitors stir, rise from the deeps and mold shadow into forms that feed on it, fueled from beneath. Infernal love rages and nomadic conclusion gets lost in the dark. Stunned heart wanders apart, shrouded with doubt's double vision, trust's tissue shredded, abandoned. When fury rages in the breast, watch the reiterating heart. Sappho. This now becomes a story, long known but rarely traveled these days, of monsters and caves, treasure buried deep in darkness pools at love's root, a maiden in a tower quests for love's sake, the works just waiting for the word to come down, and progenitors to free the love eidolon rises in dark, offers to make whole the unbroken, to fill the hole beneath with gold that never was, burying the treasure, and all the while withdrawing, all the while obscuring the way through the cave to where the maiden dwells behind a spell of mystery on the other side. And the road returns, the same one heads down and away, and the word comes down, despair returned as if that fate Tantalus in Aphrodite's garden lingers in stuttered propositions, pooled darkness lashes out, and the heart turns this way, that way, and the horizon draws so much closer than yesterday. The recent full eclipse of the sun has nothing on a heart engorged with love's dark root, erupts in bearing spook swirls, hot tears, and the beneath, an ancient behemoth who asks, "Who do you love?" resonates from beyond obvious locales given the force pushes up, primordial, hot, magna, old power lurking in the dark, not exactly anticipated ecstasy, not even pleasure, as forms from ancient dream rise, teem, demand blood, no elsewhere pitkin required, a small corner of the heart will do, where images royal and swarm deep in certain conclusions among whisper of loss and death, all the need disguised as desire swallows love whole. Meanwhile, back at the story, the love eidolon takes her place athwart the high road. The monster writhes in pain and rage at being left behind, abandoned, though he can't recall when. The maiden waits patiently, hoping someday to be seen. The dreamer writhes in sweat-soaked sheets, and the cave remains indifferent. Spirit talons grip on your scalp conclude certain ceremonial occasions as well as occasional affairs of heart. A euphemism of astonishing effect leaves wounded and mutilated high and dry with no claim for damage from a mere affair, unless heart's horror at knotted reflection opens to a new vocabulary, resembles mist in a field gilded with first light. First touch of the star quickens vision's cracked chrysalis. opens into releases magic, dispels darkness, shrouds love, eidolon, perfect mask, and ritual department store, discount basement, brouhaha, Black Friday, sacred violence and quiet, in quest of desires, perfect deal, and determined conclusion, cashed out, packed up, headed home, reveals familiar figure, shimmers in and out of focus in a new light. The naked eye makes a surprise entrance in the story from Herculaneum, looking for missing words, lack invisible letters that might make sense of the whole affair. It's dishabille, a reminder or perhaps remainder given invisible letters, clues disrupt ordinary progress through imaginary events that leave the soul hammered by repeated eruptions, may not boil brain and blood, but still roast your skull, your scroll, so to speak. And no hyperspectral broadband infrared light is going to reveal Spectre's secret, naked eye or not, unless love finds a way through glamour's spell to the world that waits to be seen. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. The world that waits to be seen is one of those Jack and the Beanstalk magic beans for a cow kind of thing, a matter of trust, experts say, or darker confidence, as Melville had it, our blind drive to dwell in blissful ignorance of the horror follows in our wake. So, beans for a cow. Climb through clouds to heaven where a giant lives, a giant you have to kill and steal all his stuff. Bags of gold coins, gold egg-laying hen, a singing harp, also gold. And then you'll be rich, which sounds great if the beans are really magic and you don't mind heights. And killing's not a problem, which it is. Even killing a nasty giant, sometimes described as an ogre, a word meant to leave him exposed to random human wrath because it's so ugly, when he's really just hanging out, minding his own giant business, coming up with lame rhymes, fum and man, really? And doting on his hen, does he deserve to get whacked by a dirty, snot-nosed, thieving Englishman? Well, when you put it that way, but who cares? And anyway, the point was about my life in your hands, trust, not imperial propaganda for the nursery. It's about the cow, whose name remains obscure, though the BBC claims it's Daisy. While the Persians called Geush Urva, spirit of the cow, the soul of the earth. But in this poem, it stands for a nomadic conclusion chock full of uncertain time, waiting patiently, while the bean guy goes on about how you can trust him to provide you with certain access to heaven, a lot of free gold too, and all you have to do is give him Daisy, the soul of the earth. The giant assumes Nietzschean proportions, a cheeky assumption, but in a story that refuses order, or at least slips the leash of settled intent, including worlds waiting to be seen, no less a matter of trust than trading your cow for a handful of beans, or for that matter, your heart. In which case, the story runs out of gas near Buffalo, or maybe Hamilton. At the same time, Friends emerges from the other end of the cave after a sleepless night, confused, frightened, unsure of exactly who's left when the archetype leaks all over the floor, then, poof, disappears in a cloud of imaginary smoke, and all that's left is nothing, bleeding and bleeding. And there's no telling allegorical spasms to settle down and dead giants to behave, so the whole thing enters a metaphor groove, as the exhaustion of divine possibility, which Stanley Cavell points out is followed by exhaustion of human possibility. Not that that ever had much traction aside from systematic plunder and the idea that love is redemptive rather than the emotional equivalent of a stomach cramp. And we know how that ends. And here we are, guilty as charged. We're the ones stole his beloved hen, laid him low, thinking opera could do the job just as well. But it turns out all those sweet voices singing human love were just more hot air, adding to climate catastrophe's world waiting to be seen. It's like that. The story fizzles out for lack of interest, looking a lot like the spell it sought to dispel. The world weeps bitter tears for the lost cow, Daisy, named for a roadside white flower. Simple joy springs from ground, bearing news of life released from earth's grip, while release's magic gets caught up in contractual difficulties with love eidolons rage at the memory of a made-up mother's vacant gaze, while love cowers sleepless, terrified at its own power returned in a form it can't make out through all the swirling ghosts and snarling nomad conclusions swarm around stunned innocence that just hopes for silence and a little peace. But the dead giant is transformed, abracadabra, into love itself. Or at least what looks like love from down here in the muck, shiny, golden, heaven's prize. And Daisy patiently waits for someone to notice she hasn't been fed or milked since they all went gaga for love, mistaking it for a movie poster with Burt Lancaster and Deborah Kerr lip-locked in the pounding surf, get it? From here to eternity, it says, and wow, does that look good? And eternity is like heaven. So here, take my cow and give me those magic beans. I want a shot at love's golden prizes, which almost works metaphorically, except the dead giant has already claimed love's handle, and murdering love to win the prize seems incoherent. But then so far nothing has been very coherent, and the love eidolon's confusion factor ramps up fear production, confusion, more longing for a dead mother's arms that, lacking substance, holds mind in a hammerlock, occupies the conjugal arcanum with spectral hysteria, till love, battered by doubts and anger, yields, withdraws the field. Unexpected detours on the road down deliver travelers into surprise spiritual ordeals with promises of a warm bath and a hot meal, then wham! Upside the head with a love hammer or some other club leaves them senseless, subject to the whim of various winds blowing no good for a weary traveler, though some say the ordeal was needed to draw into light the figures of the dance, the authors of your passion. While there's still time to understand, though, why that would make much difference at this point remains obscure, especially given the excruciation of endless loss it demands as payment for knowledge of the ongoing operation of progenitors in a passion for gold-flecked eyes or other arbitrary signs of love's chokehold on meaning's duplicitous outcome. The calculus of the conjugal arcanum returns as Godzilla, rips the shit out of everything in sight, whips its big, scaly differential emotion equation around, demolishing world after world, scattering the pieces till through the chaos of dust and crashing bricks, Mom shows up, just glimpsed between skeletal ruins of what remains of the old chosen habitation, and she laughs, her deep, rich laugh, a laugh that loves it all, embraces it all, destroys it all, and behind her the mystery who rages, lashes out in pain and fear. The world we choose not to inhabit haunts us, flits around the edge of day, laughs a rich, deep laugh, offers mad love, free from ordinary cruelties and business, a gentle communion once called in watermelon sugar, a never was that almost was, or is, though only as the myth of a lost continent, a deathless realm high in the mountains. The never-was world left behind swells, and her laughter occupies gold-flecked eyes, becomes the measure of love's lost body, leaves the day desiccated in the shadow of need's hunger, maelstrom stirred from the depths where old powers royal seek to own living limbs, sweep them up in love's sweet rage, while Daisy waits alone and hungry, abandoned for a handful of greed. When the calculus of the conjugal arcanum intersects ghost of the abandoned world, the habitation of actual life, Emerson's fire and firkin, kids, hockey, the price of gas drowns in wave after wave, her laughter promises liberty's joy in another's touch, home at last, nostos, algos, lost world, last temptation, settles into heart's hope, leaves here a mouthful of ash, overwhelmed by radiance of lost land's allure. Here the road takes a turn into surprise. The love eidolon, still lurking in the poem, appears astride the high road, still hungry for soul. She wraps herself round and round with nostalgia's glittering ribbons, draws the traveler into a web of illusory salvation in gold-flecked eyes, lambent light holds the soul in a mirror stasis, dangles over want's pit, yawning, caught. Till embraced by light from beyond the royal dispels need, intercedes, scatters it, sends the love eidolon packing, gift of mind's mystery works, unraveled reward for deep fidelity to balance life beyond bequeathed confusions of archaic conjugal control, perfection's exclusion, illusion of quenched desire. Gold-flecked eyes returned to their owner, released into sky of today's blue tomorrow.